We're going to start with egoism and its best known defender, Thomas Hobbes. Now, we've looked at a number of different theories. We've looked at theories from cultural relativism to natural law to utilitarianism, most recently deontology. And Hobbes would say that all of those theories do a very good job of at least one of the two primary roles of ethics. They do a very good job of explaining how someone ought or should act. So remember what natural law says: always follow the universal laws of human nature. Utilitarianism, always maximize happiness, minimize suffering. They can all tell you fairly clearly what you should do. But what egoism would say, what Hobbes would say, is they're really lacking in the second category, namely, if someone asks, why should I do that? Why is that the way I ought to act? So, for example, suppose the natural law theorist says you need to follow these universal laws of human nature. And suppose the person responds back and says, why should I if I don't feel about it? If I don't feel like doing that? And they might say something like, well, these are the actions that will cause society to flourish if everyone follows them. And the individual might say, well, they might very well do that. But how does that give me an obligation to do it? What do I care about society? Again, the utilitarian, always maximize happiness, minimize suffering for as many people as you possibly can. Suppose the utilitarian tells me that and I say, well, why should I care about the happiness of everyone else? What difference does that make to me? So the egoist, and Thomas Hobbes in particular, is going to say, we're going to emphasize that second point. We're going to talk about the problem of motivation. We've seen what a lot of people say you ought to do. Now let's see why you should do it, even if you don't initially feel like following that. So, how would egoism answer those two questions? Number one, how should I act? They're going to say you should always act in your own best long-term interests. You may remember the distinction way back from the first couple of days of class between the narcissist, which simply gratifies himself, does whatever he wants immediately. If I want it, I'm going to do it. And then the egoist who says, there are some things that I want, but there are other things that I want more. I may have to forego certain desires and pleasures in the immediate present so that I can have greater fulfillment in the long term. That's what this egoism is going to do. Now, what about the second question? Why should I act that way? Why should I always focus on my best long-term interests? And the egoist is going to say, I have something to answer that question. It's very simple, but it's also very powerful. And that is, quite simply, because it's best for you. You may think, that's it? That's the whole thing? That's the base? That's egoism? Do what's in my best long-term interest. Why? Because it's what's best for me? Yes. So just let me explain, as simple as this is, let me explain why it's so effective. Again, if I'm the natural law theorist, some days I may wake up and I may say, I'm just tired of following these universal laws of human nature. I'm going to do what I want to do. Or if I'm a utilitarian, I'm going to say, I just don't care about the happiness of everyone else today. I'm going to do what I want to do. However, if I'm an egoist and someone says, this is what you ought to do, the egoist tells me this is how you need to act over it, and I say, well, why should I worry about that? Why should I bother with it? Why should I care? And they're going to say, Hooford, this is why you should care. It's best for you. And if they're right, and if I can see that, then that will provide a much stronger motivation than some theoretical idea that it follows some universal laws of human nature, or that it follows maximizing happiness, minimizing suffering, or that it's my rational duty. All those other things, I just may not feel like doing them. But if I really understand that something is what's best for me, then why wouldn't I want to do it? This provides the motivation that you need. Now, let me go ahead and put this in right now. It'll become more obvious later. But when you ask, well, how much do I have to worry about it being best for me as opposed to someone else? You have to worry about that all the way down to the ground. Because the egoist is going to say, I have no moral duties to anyone, any group, any individual, except for myself. I'm the only one that I have moral duties towards. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be pleasant and I'm not going to be kind to other people. It just means that I have no direct duty to treat them any particular way. We'll look at this in more detail later on. So you may remember the most basic test that a moral theory should have to pass. And that is, okay, whatever this moral theory is suggesting, how would the world be if everyone acted that way? So suppose everyone is an egoist. Everyone starts asking, what's in my best interest? I want to do what's going to be best for me. How many of you say, oh, I'd love to live in the world where everyone thinks about that, where everyone is totally focused on meeting their own needs and desires? How many of you say, oh, that sounds like a great improvement. Can't wait to go there. Well, Thomas Hobbes says it doesn't sound very popular. Not a lot of people think they want to go. But if you thought about it for a moment, you'd realize that actually, yes, the world would be a better place. It would not be worse. It wouldn't even be the same. Hobbes thinks it would, in fact, be better. Why would he say that? Why does he think that the world would be improved if everyone were just a little more selfish? And I should say selfish in the right way. Well, again, he has fairly simple reasons for this. Children should be able to understand this. Even college students. Anyway, here's why he's going to say, yes, the world would in fact be a better place than it already is. So he's going to ask himself, all right, what are some of the most important things to my long-term self-interest? And we could come up with a list of several things, but here's one thing he says you've got to have on that list. If it's not number one, it's going to be right up there. He's going to say, how are all these other people in the world going to treat me? If as a general rule, everyone else treats me well, then that should be a pretty good life. All of the things being equal. If people treat me poorly, that could be a horrific life. So here's the question. Is there anything that I can do that will make it more likely that other people will treat me well? And he says, there's nothing I can do that guarantees this, but there is something I can do practically that makes it much more likely. And again, this is not deep theoretical stuff. We're not doing 3 steps to the categorical imperative here. We're doing very simple things. So he's going to say, here are some things that I probably should not do. I should not cause others unnecessary harm. Why not? Because if I do that, I am painting a target on my back. Now, let me just say something obvious. The fact that I am considerate and compassionate to others and that I don't go around exploiting them, harming them, stealing from them, does that guarantee that they're going to reciprocate? Does that guarantee that they're going to treat me well? And the answer, Hobbes says, is no, it doesn't. I realize that. He's going to say, and by the way, no theory works perfectly all the time. Neither does egoism. It's not a perfect theory. Hobbes is going to say it doesn't need to be a perfect theory. It just needs to be better than the alternatives. You've all probably heard the old story about 2 folks walking out in the woods, and all of a sudden they come upon a hungry bear that starts to come after them, and from the distance, one of them turns and starts sprinting as fast as he can, trying to get away. The one behind calls out and says, what are you doing? You'll never outrun that bear. And what does the one say who's running away from him? He says, "You're right, but I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you." Well, in a similar way, that's what Hobbes is saying here. I don't need to come up with a perfect moral theory. I don't need to fix every single problem. All I need to do is be better than the others. I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun utilitarianism. I just need to outrun deontology. I just need to outrun the other guys. So the fact that this isn't perfect doesn't mean that it's not the best theory we have. So he says, I'm not going to harm others. Why? Because it's unkind. Because that's not the way that an ethical person acts. No, because if I go around harming people whenever it suits my pleasure, pretty soon a lot of people are going to be repaying me in kind. I don't want that. Why not? It's not in my interest. And there's several other examples that are almost exactly the same. I'm not going to go around lying to others. I need to be able to basically trust people. If I'm going to a very important job interview and I'm getting in just on time, I don't want to be late, don't want to make a bad first impression. Come in, say to the person behind the desk, where do I find the job interview? Where's room 204 or whatever it is? And they say, oh, it's up on the top floor. I better be able to trust them. I don't want to race all the way up the stairs to the top floor and find out it was actually in the basement. So is there anything I can do to maximize the likelihood people will be honest with me? And he says, well, don't go around giving them good reasons to try to harm you, to try to mislead you. And we could come up with a whole bunch of other examples. Don't steal from others, etc. But it's not only going to be telling me things that I should not do. That's a good start. Don't do to someone something that you think is going to make them hate you, something that you think is going to cause them to try to take advantage of you or harm you later. It's also going to give you some positive things that you should do for other people. So just real quick, for example, if I'm kind to others, again, does it guarantee they'll be kind to me? No. And nothing does, he says. But it makes it more likely that they'll be kind to me. Same thing with fairness and various other things like that. So just to give a quick example of these very simple rules that we've been looking at so far. Imagine that you're driving into the school. We're going to classes just like we normally do. And imagine that all of a sudden your car breaks down. A mile or a couple miles from the school, you have to pull over to the side of the road. And if you're like me, and I'm sure some of you could do much better than this, you're much more competent. But if you're anything like me, you get out of the car, pop the hood, go raise it up, look inside, and say something to the effect of, well, the engine's still there. Now what do I do? That's about my extent of troubleshooting engine problems on the road. So imagine that you're sitting there. You've only got so much more time. It's actually starting to rain. You don't know what you're going to do. And all of a sudden you look down the road and you see someone else from the same class driving just along the way that you are. They're obviously going to school. They're obviously going to the exact same classroom that you are. It would be so easy for them to give you a ride the rest of the way. So you kind of step out a little ways into the road, wave your hands, kind of get their attention. They'll recognize you just like you recognize them. They'll stop and give you a ride. What do? They start to slow down a little bit and veer over to the side of the road. Why? So they can stop and help you out? No, so that the person can actually run right into one of those mud puddles and smear all that dirt and grime up on you and your car as they go by, laughing maniacally. And you're sitting there dripping wet, starting to get a little bit of a chill. And then another car starts coming down the road. Again, it's another one of your classmates, another student coming along the way. And you're more hesitant this time. You don't come, you're kind of ducking a little bit behind your car so that you can hide behind it if you need to, but you still kind of wave timidly, trying to get their attention. This time they pull over. The driver gets out. They see you. They say, what happened? What happened to your car? Here, let me help you. Come sit in my car. But I'm soaking wet. I'm dripping in mud. They said, don't worry about it. It's just leather. That's fine. Sit down. Be comfortable. I have some coffee. Why don't you have some? Here, I can call AAA. They'll come take your car wherever you want it. And they give you a ride into class. They take care of you. They make sure that they've done everything for you they can. Now, suppose some days later, maybe a couple of weeks, you're driving down that same road again. Car's fixed. Everything's back to normal. And as you happen to be coming down the road, what should you see but not one car broken down along the side, but two? It happens to be both of those students that you saw when you were broken down in the same spot. You see the first student that spurned you, the one that just drove close by to splatter you with all the dirt and grime, and you saw the other one that really helped you. Who are you more likely to stop and help? And who are you more likely not to help? It's not complicated. It's very simple. We are much more likely to help those that are helpful to us. And we're much more likely, when someone embarrasses us, when someone ignores us in need, to say, serves you right. Again, is this going to guarantee it? And Hobbes says, no, it's not. But you see, utilitarianism doesn't guarantee anything either. Just because someone says, maximize happiness, that's not going to guarantee that everyone actually does it, especially when they don't feel like it. So this will not guarantee that people will treat you better, but it gives them the best reasons to. So let me just clarify something here. Hobbes is going to say, what if everyone acted the way that I'm now supposing I should act? What if everyone is being kind to others because they're trying to make it most likely that others will return the favor? What if everyone is being fair? What if everyone goes around saying, I'm not going to cause unnecessary harm. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to steal. Why? Because I do not want to give anyone an excuse to treat me that way. Well, if everyone follows that example, then he says, we have a word for that. That's just called acting morally. Everyone will be acting morally. And here's the best part. Everyone will be better off. So I'm not going to keep harping on this, does it work every single time? I'm going to assume that you get that, but suppose it only works 80% of the time. And Hobbes would say it'll probably work more than that. But suppose it only works 80% of the time. Wouldn't that be a better world than the one we have today? Does everyone do the right thing 80% of the time in the real world? Hobbes says, I think they could do better. And if you think about it for just a second, this is really a unique opportunity because you can be, number one, totally selfish, and number two, totally moral, all at the exact same time. It's just you have to be selfish in the right way. Have you ever heard someone say there are two types of cholesterol? There's a good cholesterol, there's a bad cholesterol. I have no idea if that's true. But Hobbes is going to say there is a good type of selfishness. And there is a bad type of selfishness. There is a stupid type of selfishness. There's a selfishness which does not ask, what are the consequences of these actions? What am I going to have to pay for this tomorrow? And there's a smart type of selfishness that says, what's going to be not in my best interest today, but in the long term? What's going to be in my interest in the way that I should treat other people to maximize the likelihood that they're going to treat me well? He says that is the right type of selfishness. That's selfishness for sophisticated adults. And if everyone follows it, everyone will be better off. But be careful. Remember, the theory is not called make everyone better off-ism. It's called egoism. So ultimately, the reason to act morally is because it's best for me, is because it's in my interest, not because it will make the world a better place. That is a wonderful side effect, but it is only a side effect. After all, if someone says, well, why shouldn't I steal from someone else? Why should I be fair to them? And the answer that you give them is because it will make the world a better place. That may not be enough. They may not care about the rest of the world that day. But if they can see that this is actually in their long-term best interest, that has the best chance of providing sufficient motivation to do the right thing. Here's a real simple example. Suppose at some playground a young toddler goes up and turns on the water fountain so that a dog running around in the park can get a drink. Not necessarily the family dog, not one that belongs to the family that the toddler is in, just some other dog running around out there, not being watched, not being restrained. What do you think this dog is most likely to do? Do you think this dog is most likely to turn around and attack this child that just helped it out, that just gave it a drink? Or do you think this dog, given the choice between those two, is more likely to protect this child from someone who comes in to do them harm? Now, obviously, the fact that this child went and helped them get a drink is not going to guarantee one or the other, but I think most people would say even animals understand this basic idea of help those that help you, of do not attack those who are making life better for you. If even dogs can do this, shouldn't humans be able to follow the same thing? So if everyone follows these basic rules, wouldn't that make the world a much better place? And yes, I realize I'm kind of overdoing it here, over the top, laying it on a little thick. Yes, I understand that. I admit that. But isn't the basic idea sound? I'm going to treat others the way I would want them to treat me. They're going to treat me the way that they want to be treated. But what provides the motivation? What's the engine for that? It's best for me. That, in a nutshell, is egoism. It's a very simple, very straightforward theory.